Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Cindy Diffenderfer on the line, and she's co-founder and CEO of Orion Haus Homes and Hotels. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today, Adam.
All right, Cindy. So we have some good topics today. So we'll definitely be talking about really how to turn renters into investors. We'll talk about the flexible housing space and what that looks like. We hear these words like, Airbnb, what they're doing, flexible leases. I mean, lots of things to cover. And you and what you're doing at Orion Haus, you're really in the middle of all of this shift in housing. So exciting stuff there. But we'll start this episode like we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So Cindy, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission here. Cindy, what mission matters to you?
That's a really good question. I'm driven by a couple different things, but I think, what really drives us here at Orion Haus is creating quality lifestyle housing solutions with affordability kind of woven in. So we make home sharing accessible to many, introducing opportunities for the average Joe to make extra income without having to take another job.
It's awesome. And I love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs and executives on the line to really just share why they do what they do, like what gets them excited, where their passion is. And housing is something that you've obviously really gone far into. But before we go into housing overall in Orion Haus, how did you get started in this journey, like as an entrepreneur and leading up to now?
Well, Adam, I've been a host on Airbnb since 2011.
Oh, wow.
Very, very early on. I was using the platform for exactly what we're creating today. And that is to afford people the ability to monetize their home while they're away. And I did that a couple different ways. I've been a serial entrepreneur, so I've had multiple businesses, both huge successes and crushing failures. It's feast or famine in entrepreneurship. Yeah. And Airbnb as a tool was something that really did carry me through in a lot of cases. And I used it two different ways. One, it was monetizing my actual home. And at that point, I lived in New York City. So every penny counts. Yeah. Extraordinarily high rents, cost of living just in general was tremendously high. And I was commuting to Silicon Valley, raising capital for my company at that time. So I would raise or rent out my own apartment in New York City. And then I was also using the platform in Silicon Valley to offset my expenses while I was out there soliciting investment for my business at the time. So really, really driven from a real place of need. And then also the complexity that comes along with home sharing, trying to make a smarter solution so that others can participate.
So from your vantage point, like this idea of flexible housing, I believe it's really affecting the real estate industry overall. Like what are you seeing? Because you've been, and again, from being an Airbnb user from way back then, like you've been seeing this and you've been on the trend from the beginning. And obviously now with Orion Haus, pioneering some things. Like what are you seeing that's interesting in this space?
The sharing economy at large has just been taking off extraordinarily quickly in a lot of different fashions. I think the one that's most notable has been Airbnb in housing. Then it's Uber in car sharing, Lime on scooters, Turo, actually renting out your car when you're not using it. Now you've got parking solutions. You can rent out your pool. Like basically you can monetize kind of any asset that you've got. And it's no longer limited. I think, for a very long time, it was millennials that were really the ones that were participating, that not only were the drivers of envisioning this sharing economy and what it really could mean for everyone, they were the adopters and users of it. And now what we're seeing is that we're getting our parents and our grandparents over the shoulder. So when you talk about like the demographic of actual both hosts and users from any one of these perspectives, it's really broken up pretty evenly across 25 to 35, 35 to 45, 45 to 55, 55 to 65, and 65 plus, and almost down the middle between men and women. So it's no longer a narrow scope of users. I mean, this is really a commercial product, or more importantly, a commercial concept to everyone, where it's no longer scary to let a stranger into your car or get into a stranger's car, or let someone sleep in your bed or sleep in somebody else's bed. I mean, those are the things that I think intellectually and emotionally many people really had to get past. And now, once you've done it, it's a lot easier to do it again. But the biggest obstacle is getting in a stranger's car the first time, or letting someone sleep in your bed. And then it gets a lot easier. And then, then they're telling their friends and they say, oh my goodness, well, we rented this great place in Vero Beach and just had a wonderful holiday with our family. And while we did that, we also rented out our home and made $1,500 and we pay for our vacation. So it's really a win-win. But there is an emotional and intellectual barrier that has to kind of be, overcome and met. But the financial one certainly is a motivator to get people there.
Who are some of the major players that you feel stand to benefit the most from this new sharing and flexible leasing and real estate? Like, who are some of the big players that you think will win?
I think the REITs, the real estate investment trusts, are probably the single largest category that certainly have an enormous amount of inventory, a lot of motivation, increasing their net operating income, even by a small margin, moves that portfolio billions of dollars. So those are the guys that really benefit, but it's the consumer, it's the people, it's their residents. They're actually moving the needle for them. So institutions are going to make a lot of money with this, and already are. Venture capitalists are making a lot of money with it by investing in companies like mine, as well as Airbnb and many other sharing economy-based companies. So who I'm really the most passionate about is the end consumer. Like, how do we create additional revenue for people that might otherwise be struggling or might be on a fixed income? You're retired now, cost of living is higher than the inflation rate's higher than it has been in 40 years, but yet they still only get that same amount every single month that they have to live off of. So, the people I think that have always struggled are going to benefit the most. Everybody gets paid. That's the reason why people participate. But I think it's the guys that are, on fixed incomes or struggling, or single parents, or trying, if you're trying to go back to school and find a way to finance that. Having to take a second job and really compromise, maybe your ability to parent, or just your ability to recharge your own batteries and make sure that, you're taking care of yourself. But home sharing really gives people the ability to earn extra income without taking on that extra job.
Yeah, and I think it's just time and time again I'll hear this story and I'll be like, they're doing what? Like, they did what? And it just, like, it's becoming more and more acceptable, I think, especially in markets, like, depending on where you live and if it's a tourist destination or not. Like, I'm in the middle of LA and I hear more and more people like saying, oh yeah, they're even, instead of selling their home or things like that, or downsizing, they're like, it becomes a business. Like, it becomes a business that they rent out, and there's there's profit, there's other things there, and it funds maybe their in a condo or something different. But it just kind of blows my mind, like, all the different creative ways that people are really taking advantage of this market and this shift. What are some of the things you've seen? Because I don't want to assume, by the way, when we use words like flexible housing or home sharing or things like this, I don't want to assume everybody knows what that is.
Right. No, and that's very fair. Look, we use a lot of different terms to try and describe this. There's very common institutional terms where we are saying home sharing and flexible housing. But what it really is, and what Orion Haus is focused on, is allowing renters to monetize their home. You no longer have to be a homeowner in order to create that investment income. And I'll give you an example. So if you're going to buy a condo for $250,000, you then have to furnish it, pay the HOA fees on it, your tax fees, incidentals, whatever it takes to actually run that property. With Orion House, you can rent a unit with us. So you pay your 1 month lease deposit. We have rental furniture that can actually pop up that unit and get it running. Also run it for you. So if you want a second home or a third home or fourth home because you want to be able to travel and live in different cities and have those experiences, that's one way that you can utilize the Orion House product while also offsetting what could be a big financial commitment. But if you want to become a real estate investor and you don't have that liquidity, or you don't qualify for a $250,000 second home mortgage because you already got a first mortgage on your primary residence, this is a way that you can get into real estate investing without having those massive capital requirements. And so we have really kind of two separate consumers that we focus on. We've got a primary resident that this is their first home, and they might be renting their house out when there's a sporting event or a music festival or concerts that are going on, something that's causing compression in your town. Seasonality, which also is another key driver. What are those hot weekends throughout the year that you can rent your place out for $500 or $1,000 a night. So people that are using this as a primary residence that might be staying with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or going and visiting their parents while they can generate that extra income. And then secondarily, we've got professional hosts. And those are more traditional real estate investors that say, I've got $500,000, but if I deployed that towards a condo, I could get one, maybe two that could throw out this type of cash flow. They take that $500,000 and now invest with us as a renter. You can get 10, 20, 30 rental properties that are cash flowing for you instead of one or two. So we have two distinct different users. We really do have that primary resident that just wants to make an extra few $1,000s throughout the year. And then you've got the professional hosts that are looking at more of the coastal communities that we're servicing, the primary and secondary metropolitan areas that have got the high average daily rates and pretty consistent demand from travelers, but using it both ways.
Yeah, I think first off, I think that the model is genius because what you're doing now is you're kind of allowing more people to participate in real estate investing, but then you're also you kind of get to do both sides of it. You also get to potentially, if that's what you wish, to enjoy the real estate itself, which traditionally you don't get to have both. So your development of the model, I think, is really interesting. I think it serves a huge niche. What went into this? Like how did you develop the model? Like, how did you come up with this idea? It's just so interesting to me.
It's a very long story, and it started back in 2014. I've been a user of Airbnb since 2011, and I think part of the biggest challenge that I encountered when I was really hosting is that it wasn't allowed within my lease. The building owners didn't allow it. The city of New York did not allow it. So I had a lot of things that kind of were going against me. I relocated to South Florida in 2014. And one of my colleagues at that time said, Cindy, I'm developing these really luxury, beautiful buildings. And I've got Airbnb travelers that I know are not my residents that are going through the lobbies and in the elevators with their luggage constantly. And we really don't have a way to verify that they don't belong in the building, but I just know that they're not our owners, right? So what do we do about it? And that question really provoked the idea of how do you make it valuable for an asset owner to allow transient lodging within a residential building, and do it in a fashion that doesn't disrupt the quality of living and the environment in which that building was really designed and intended for. And so that was really the problem that we were looking to solve for, because I said, the consumer wants it. People want it.
For sure.
And I said, as long as the people want it, it's going to happen with or without your approval, with or without your participation from the developer and asset owner side of the equation. At that time, we had a mutual partner that had introduced us to the founders of Airbnb. And that's where we really got our jumping off point, because they at the time were also experiencing other pain points, most significantly, a lot of attrition. So they had an enormous amount of hosts coming onto the platform and having a good experience and staying for a while, and then having a bad experience and falling off. And also had a lot of travelers that were coming on and having a great experience and then having a terrible experience because there was no kind of commercial control or support system in there to make sure that that inventory was stable. So from both the host perspective as well as the traveler's perspective, there were misses there. You know, and managing expectations was one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
So we partnered with them in creating a brand and a model and a business and a building that was really designed intentionally for the hybrid of short-term and long-term rentals. And that was a few-year process. We had acquired some buildings and ran them together, and also developed 2 freestanding condos, one in Miami and one in Austin, that was designed intentionally for the long-term and the short-term rentals. 2020, I launched Orion Haus, which is a little bit different model. So my former brands are Nido and Nativo. Orion Haus is platform agnostic and it's real estate partner agnostic, meaning we work with different developers, different private equity, pre-existing buildings, product that's under development. We're in the process of converting 22 depressed hotels now into micro apartment units that are all home sharing friendly. And we are also syndicating and distributing the short-term rental product on a nightly basis through over 100 online travel agencies. So not being exclusive with one distribution channel, we're open to all distribution channels. So we're able to book and sell our short-term rentals virtually anywhere in the world, wherever travelers are shopping. We want to be there. You know, Airbnb owns the hearts and minds of many, but not all, countries. So when we're looking at South America or Eastern and Western Europe, they do tend to lean on to other booking channels like Booking.com and Trivago and Agoda. So we want to make sure that our inventory is there being sold. But it started in 2014 and here we are in almost 2022.
Yeah.
We're about 6 weeks away from next year. So it's been an 8-year journey to get here today.
What an amazing story. I love it. Like, this is great. It's a great idea. I know it's not easy to take something like this from inception to where you're at now. I think it's just an awesome story. So tell us, so speaking of now, so tell us where you're at and maybe some of the plans for growth and what you plan on doing going forward with the company.
Yep. Well, we are in the process of opening 12 different markets right now. And that is through 2 partnerships with a couple local private equity groups that are buying up these depressed hotels. We have also secured almost $500 million in funding for acquisitions for our own portfolio of properties. So we are looking to buy depressed hotels and motels, primarily in the Southeast corridor of the U.S., specifically coastal communities in Florida. And those will be redesigned and rebranded and relaunched as home sharing friendly. So currently, much of the inventory that we're working on was dedicated hotel inventory that we are now converting into multifamily. So we're increasing the supply of affordable housing while still allowing for those renters to become short-term renters on home sharing platforms like Airbnb. And then we've got 2 deals that are in development. So one in Atlanta and one in North Miami that are ground up builds.
And in terms of areas that you look at for properties, I mean, just in real estate in general, in the United States, because I know you're doing this worldwide. What are, so you mentioned just now Miami, what are in coastal towns? What are some of the areas that you tend to look towards?
So and we've got data really tells our story. So we look at data to say where is there market demand for this type of product?
Yeah.
It doesn't fit everywhere. Right now, our roadmap is the Southeast U.S., and that's really Texas to Florida to the Carolinas and back. So that triangle of the Southeast U.S. Now, when we look at the cities, there are cities like Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Memphis, Tennessee, Jackson, Mississippi, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Vero Beach, Daytona Beach. we're primarily focusing on secondary and tertiary markets, not necessarily the primary market. There's a lot of big boys that are playing in that field that we just can't compete with, or not yet, rather.
Yeah.
So where we're looking at our acquisition strategy is secondary and tertiary markets. Now, when you talk about our licensing and franchise model, we will work with the bigger companies, the bigger developers in those markets to get the Class A and Class B inventory. But our acquisition strategy is really secondary and tertiary markets.
I want to talk a little bit about the user experience, and I guess we can tackle this question, from two different sides. Obviously, there's the side of the partnership side, whether it's working with the private equity or other groups like that, and how you've partnered on that. But then the other side of it is really for the people that want to invest that are currently renters, or whether they want to be, as you mentioned, a professional host, or whether they're going to, it's going to be their primary residence and they're just going to want to use it for every now and then to rent out when it makes sense. Maybe we start with the what it's like to partner. Let's start from maybe the institutional level of what it's like to partner with Orion Haus.
So from an institutional perspective, typically we're going to come in as a property manager, similar to what a Greystar would do, except for we're providing a 24/7, 365 service. Unlike traditional property managers that generally operate Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, we're there like a hotel partner. So we do the marketing, the lease up, the complexities around move-ins and move-outs, things of that nature. We also provide interior design services, furniture packages, and we run all of the services around the short-term rentals. So if you are going to participate in the home sharing program, you manage your calendar and you say, okay, here are the days that I want my home listed for rent. And then when those bookings come in through our syndication, we say, okay, Adam, unit 101, you've got a booking this weekend. We take care of the cleaning. So pre-clean, post-clean, we collect the revenue from that stay. We also do the compliance and the tax remission. We take our portion, the revenue split for managing the process, and the balance goes into an account for that renter. Now, that renter can either choose to pay their rent from monies earned, or they can just take that money out of, it's essentially like a micro escrow account, and then deposit it into their own bank account. We also, on behalf of the owners, if a renter is in arrears on anything, if they didn't pay fines, or they're late on rent, or didn't pay their parking fees, or anything that is open-ended, that stuff is also extracted from the short-term rental earnings to make sure that our property owners are getting paid, first if they've got anything in collection and arrears, and the resident gets to take their portion of their earnings.
Man,
The renter runs the calendar, and then we basically manage everything else.
That's great. And in terms of let's go a little bit further on the renter side or the investor side for just the so what does that look like to get started with Orion Haus?
From the renters, it's the same process as if you were going to rent with any other building. We do have a wait list for all of the properties that we have right now. In fact, that our customer wait list is almost 40,000 individuals.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we've been running, and we started that campaign before we even had inventory. When I started the company in early 2020, right before COVID, we had about a dozen deals that were supposed to open, between March and August of that year. Everything just got put on hold with COVID. So now we were marketing it from inception. And now we're actually starting to move people in over the next few months. So first, get on the wait list at orionhouse.com. And then when the inventory becomes available in the cities that you express interest, that's when you can start opting in. So as soon as Memphis inventory delivers, you can put in an application. Assuming you're credit worthy, you can move into that building. You get to determine whether you want a furnished or unfurnished unit. And then you sign your lease, and everything can be done digitally. You can do virtual tours digitally. You can select your floor plans. You can select your furnishing packages, and you can sign your lease and put your deposit down, all from the comfort of your own home.
Oh, man. So you're making it too easy on them. Come on. What doesn't this do?
Let's see. We do a lot in the background to make it easy on the consumer, but really when we focused on building that consumer journey, it was all about how we would want to be able to experience this.
Absolutely.
And so first, if it's a local renter that's going to be living in the building, of course they're going to want to see the building. But because we are renting out to individuals that are using this as, investment rental properties and or second or third homes, many of them are renting sight unseen. So they're not doing a site visit before they take that rental. And so we had to really look at it and partner with a lot of other companies to create those automations that you have this seamless, what appears to be optically a very seamless application. There's a lot of partners in the background that are making that work. So, much of the technology we built ourselves, but we do have a lot of technology partners that are providing some of the services that that are included in our software suite, but are from third-party middleware companies.
Fantastic. Well, Cindy, I'll just say it's been great having you on the show today and learning more about Orion Haus and your journey and really how you're pioneering things in the flexible housing market and the home sharing space. So amazing story to bring to the audience. And speaking of that, if somebody wants to follow up and they want to learn more, whether they're on the institutional side or on the renter side, I mean, what's the best way for people to do that?
I'll give you two channels. One, you can go to the website and, of course, always add your information to our wait list as well as connect with us there for PR, marketing, and sales and rentals opportunities. From an institutional perspective, if they want to get in touch with leadership, they can email me directly at cindy@orionhaus.com.
Fantastic.
And that's CINDY@ORIONHAUS.com.
Perfect. Well, again, we'll put all that stuff in the show notes so that our audience will be able to easily just click on and take a look at what you're doing. So thank you for that. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time tuning in and checking out what we're doing at Mission Matters, we bring on business owners, entrepreneurs, and executive, and really have them share their mission, have them share their passion behind really why they do what they do. And we bring great stories to you. So don't forget, hit that subscribe button because we definitely want you to be a return viewer or listener. And Cindy, it really has been a pleasure. I'm so excited to have learned more about Orion Haus and also just to watch this. So when everybody's talking about Orion Haus, I'm like, I remember I interviewed Cindy once upon a time. So again, thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for having us.